Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show. It is a pleasure to have you today. And today I'm not going far. I'm going to Singapore, so same time zone. So it is a bit easier to manage on my side. So welcome to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. My guest today, like I just mentioned, is in Singapore, and his name is, and it's a E, so his name is Ross Swan. And just gonna give you a little bit, a background about Ross, and he'll have the opportunity to introduce himself later on. So Ross is the CEO and co-founder of Soul Inspire Leadership, and he is a leadership consultant, a coach, and a trainer. And he has a broad experience in various industry. And we'll get the opportunity to talk a little bit about his experience. And our focus today is the key to authentic leadership. So if you don't know yet, my name is Mireille Tulekima. You know me as the Greatness Engineer, and I'm always very excited to bring you the best people and people who are going to help you to learn something new and also inspire you and share tips and knowledge that will help you to go to the next level of your greatness. So I encourage you today, as usual, to have your notebook and a pen to be able to write down all that is going to be shared today by Ross. So get ready. Come in. Let us know where you're watching from. If you're watching live, and even if you intend to watch this show a little bit later, so that we know exactly who we are serving and from where. So let's go and let's welcome Rose into the Greatness Engineering Hour show. Another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show, the show that is brought to you by the Mireille Tulekima Global Leadership Organization.
Real is important is if you just look at the word compassion, when it's behavior, it's something that can be learned, and it is something that we can embody through habits and through our daily action.
To get this idea that if we interject this wisdom intentionally, I call them needle movers. It's the needle mover that's missing.
Don't deprive the world of your greatness. Please. Don't do that anymore. Dare to excel, dare to be sexy, dare to be you, dare to be the best version of yourself. Impact yourself positively, and from there impact others. And you are not alone.
So welcome Ross to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. I'm excited, and I was waiting for this moment, this conversation, But before, I go too far in my excitement, just wanted to, ask you to introduce yourself, because I did a short introduction, but I know there's much more. So just introduce yourself. Let us know what we should know about you, and then we'll delve into the topic of today.
Okay, Murray, thank you. A little bit about me. Okay, well, I've been coaching uh, leaders, young leaders, old leaders, leaders of all ages and different genders and cultural backgrounds for about 20 years. And prior to that, and I do most of that now, operate from Singapore. As you can tell by my accent, I'm from Australia, from Brisbane. And so prior to coaching, I was an executive in financial services, and I ran a regional operation. So I spent many years in either banking, funds management, insurance, quite most aspects of financial services. In Australia, that's easy to do because they were back those days they were buying each other out. Banks were buying insurance companies, vice versa. So you end up working for someone different on the odd occasion. But yeah, so why coaching? And I guess many over the time in working within the financial services, and it's not just financial services, but any industry. But I work for some really good leaders, and I work for some not so good. So I could see, and what gave me the passion, I could see the impact that a good leader has on people's lives, and as well as the negative impact that a not so good leader has on people's lives. And that filters down through their family and into their greater network, depending whether they're enjoying work or they're not enjoying work. So that sort of led me towards it. I just could see the impact. So that's why I went towards coaching as a career. And back then, the coaches weren't really known as people that actually coached executives. They're more likely coaching football teams or rugby teams or something like that. So a bit different. But eventually it all took off. And and I operate out of Singapore because it's more of a centralised region for the APEC region, which I do a lot of work in.
And that's and you actually answer your own question. Is that why coaching? Because especially back then, like you said, when we were talking about coaching, it was football coach, baseball coach. It has nothing to do with the your corporate, and that's that was the thing. But now it's quite competitive, and today we really want to know. I really want to know, when you started as a coach, how did you see leadership develop? The importance of leadership in because you've worked in different industry. So how did you see what was leadership back then, and what is leadership right now? Do they are they the same, or what have changed?
It's yes, it's changed, but probably not as quickly as we'd like. I think leadership's, and that's not when I started work. Well, that's a while ago now. It was more, you were more of a manager for process. And you had people reporting to you. You weren't really spoken of as a leader. You were, but you weren't, if you know what I mean. Not in the true term of it. So you were there in a position. So that's evolved. And I think that something, and to be in defence of organisations, industry back then, and you go further back than me, thank goodness, because I'm not that old. But when you look at the industrialised revolution, for example, people were basically uneducated a couple of hundred years ago who were working, right? And they were mainly employed for their labour, their arms, their legs, their physical labour was more why they were employed, which is more than manufacturing. And so people were told what to do back then, and they relied on their boss to tell them what to do. Well, that's fair enough, because it was truly managing a process. That was the bulk of the leadership. And that's evolved, that we now have less and less manufacturing and more reliance on employees being the ability to create to innovate, to collaborate with each other, and to think for themselves. And so that's the changing environment, which has moved along pretty quickly, but leadership hasn't, or management, I call them, hasn't caught up. It hasn't moved with that flow. It is moving more quickly, but still not catching up to that. They still have this an older way of doing things. Some people, I might add, not everyone, if that old mindset of micromanaging and I'm the leader, therefore you've got to listen to what I do and say. It's not that, because that's why you're not even employing them to do that. But yet but you're managing them like that, but you're not employing them to do that. And that's the difference. And good leaders wake up to that and see that. So they actually lead them because they employ them to do a certain role, and so they lead them accordingly. That's not quite congruent with everyone yet, but it's certainly with some good leaders.
And you're right, because we've seen a big change, in the change of, and this, from the manufacturing industrialization, which was, the first step, to now being in the fourth industrial revolution, where things are digital, things are changing quickly. There's a lot of complexity. It's global. It's so how can we be authentic in all of this? Because you were mentioning that at the beginning it was more about being told what we as a leader, telling people what to do. But now with everything that is happening, so what is key for a leader to be authentic in a way and be effective?
Well, to me, authenticity is, and hence the name of my organisation is Soul Inspired. It's leading from within, and it's, there's two things you can lead from. You can lead from your head, or you lead from the heart, basically, or the soul. Your soul inspired. That's leading from within, and the difference is, the head is open. It's a computer, and it's open to change. You put a bit of data in that's different, and the outcome is different. So you get people leading, or trying to lead by analysing things and responding to the outside world totally, and leading because someone expects me to do that, or I want to be seen as a strong, tough leader. Look, all sorts of reasons, but it's all up here. It's all like I want to be, what's strong and what's tough. It's only their perception of what it is, or their interpretation. But leaders who lead from within, it's leading heart to heart. Because the key now, as I said before, is you're trying to tap into people's creativity. You're trying to get them to create and collaborate and innovate. And that's heart to heart, because they want to. And when you're leading heart to heart, you connect with people. To me, when you connect with people on a head-to-head basis, it's more like an opinion. It's a debate. It can be a debate. It's not connecting really with empathy. And when I say authenticity, it's that strength to be true to yourself and lead from your true values.
And how do you think the authenticity is affecting what we see right now? Because I mean, it's quite chaotic when we see some of the leadership happening, especially at the state level, with all those tension and fight and challenges, and people not being able to sit down and speak properly and handle a problem, as I would say, as adult and as real leaders. So how do you think it is affecting us?
Well, it's a big effect. There again, that's leading from the head. That's a perception. I've got to be tough, or as a country, we've got to show who's boss here. Like, it's all up here comparing with other countries and other people. If they really connected heart to heart, then you would be sitting at the table and talking, because you'd be treating each other, that's soul to soul. You're treating each other as a human. I mean, and to me, that's what we should be doing. And the politicians to do that aren't in the majority. They're probably in the minority. They're leading. They're leading politically the way older politicians lead in the past, and that's all changing as well.
Exactly.
It's just changing, but there again, it'll take a long time to catch up. And I suspect industry will be there well before politicians will be there.
Okay, all right. So we're going to have a short break, and we will be back to continue this very exciting conversation. And I think it is an important one because whatever we think, we are all leaders where we are. You know, there are leaders that have titles, and we are all leaders without titles. But we'll continue the conversation after this short break. So we are back. We are back with Ross. And if you're just joining us, Ross is based in Singapore, is the CEO and co-founder of Soul Inspire Leadership. But he is an Aussie. So he's, just, been borrowed for the time being, but we expect to have him back soon when he's finished his mission. So as we, continue our conversation on, authentic leadership. So what do you think are the key things to be, an authentic leader, and what are the challenges that any authentic leader has to face, especially in what we call this VUCA world, which VUCA standing for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So that's the whole lot. So what are the key things?
Well, the key things, let's talk about what are the challenges that make it hard. And because that tends to be the more dominating aspect in quite a few people's cases. I mean, what makes it hard, as I mentioned before, it's listening to your head too much and comparing it with yourself with other people, or trying to lead with the expectations of satisfying what others think and feel, or more so what others think, not so much what they feel. It's like, I'm expected to be doing this way. I'm expected to be tough. I'm expected to do this. I really feel I'd like to do this because this is true to myself, true to my values. But other people who have more influence than me, they want me to be doing this or that. And I think that's some of the problem with authenticity. The challenge is doing what you believe others expect you to do. And the really good leaders, they listen to other people. Don't get me wrong. They listen to them all the time. They're exceptionally good listeners. But they still look at what they believe in, and they take that data and they adapt it to what they believe in. Not so much I'll adapt what I believe in to what other expectations are. And that's probably the biggest challenge. And it's all this belief that I've got to be doing things in a certain way and it can go against your values. And the good leaders stick to their values. And all the ones I've coached, the really good ones I've coached, that's one thing I say that they're all got in common. They stick to their values, what's true to themselves. So when you look at all that information, as I said, it's just a wide variety of information, and it's just the beliefs we've learned, the program we've learned over the years. Then you just follow suit. The good leaders stand back and say, "No, I've got to be doing what I need to be doing." And in the VUCA world, it's challenging because the VUCA world is very challenging. You're trying to succeed. You're trying to increase and improve the shareholder value when you're doing things that you think that you struggle to sleep at night because your heart's telling you, your inside's telling you that's probably not what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what the shareholders want. Maybe they probably don't want that, but that's what they believe they want. Okay, so it's just this perception. So it's all those sorts of things when you've just got to say, no, I've got to live my values. Now, if my values don't agree with the organisation I'm working for, then staying true to my value, my true authentic self, I'll leave and I'll go to some other organisation that is true to my values. And that's what people are doing more so since COVID, because they've reflected on their own values and their own what they believe in. So they're looking at reflecting more, and they're looking at who they're working for and the values they add, and that gets a bit more of that the environmental, social, and governance. It's that I've got to be true to these things. I can't just say I am, but I've got to actually live it. And that's, to me, that's getting more truer to yourself.
And that's something we really need to stress out, because the way business is done right now is systemic. So sometimes it becomes very difficult when you get into a system and those values are not really connecting with you, and you're stuck in a way, because at the same time there's sometimes a survival issue, and
That's right.
you have to stay in the system, but then your values are telling you otherwise, and that can be really the difficult part of it. And how do you think education, because obviously everything that we do, I mean, comes from how we've been either raised or what we've learned at school. So what do you think is the part of education, either the formal education, but also the environment where we've evolved?
Well, I think that's a good question, because you've hit my passion point here. Because there again, when I talk about the good leaders, they all have the ability to lead from within. And the most important aspect of that, as I mentioned, some of the not so good leaders are basically listening to the outside world too much and trying to bend and weave and blow at the breeze, whatever's out there, whatever's the opinion of the month. But the true leaders stay true to themselves. And what that requires is self-leadership, the ability to lead yourself. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. It just doesn't work. Yeah. It's just no different to if you can't love yourself, you won't love anyone else. You think you might, but you don't really, because you don't understand what it is, because you can't love yourself. You got to understand what it is. So you got to understand self-leadership. So all the good leaders, there again, have the ability to lead themselves. By leading themselves, that helps them lead within, stay within that authentic values that they have and they aspire to. And so it's that self-leadership. Now, when you talk about education, we just don't teach that. Some children are born with parents who can really believe it and understand it. Others aren't. That's just the way it is. So they go to school and they get taught knowledge. That knowledge is power. Knowledge isn't power. Wisdom is power. Wisdom is the power, not knowledge. It's the ability to use what you've learned with wisdom. It's the ability to have it with effective use of it, not so much of it, I'm smarter than you and you're smarter than me. But that's how we program children. It's changing. It's changing gradually. But when I started school, that when we have an exam, then the smarter one who topped the class would sit up the back in the corner, and they'd go along the row till the 8th, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to about 35. So the 35th person's down the front, right, the opposite end. So that person's basically been told, well, you're not smart enough. Right? And so luckily I wasn't there. I was towards the back, but I was never the top one. I was up there somewhere, but it was never going to be top. Trust me, it's never going to make that. But what it is, see, we laud the people for their knowledge and the ability to remember and learn, all those things. So you go through to university and that's what you're rewarded for. But when you get to the business world, that's just knowledge.
That's different, yeah.
And the business world's crying out for leaders who have wisdom. But we don't teach wisdom. And wisdom comes from self-leadership. It's the ability to connect with people and use the knowledge effectively, not display your knowledge like a peacock, right? You're not throwing your feathers up. You're just using it until you use what you know intelligently. And good leaders do that. They have wisdom.
And it's a problem because I've seen so far in corporation where they when they do promotion they look at the person that is basically showing that they can deliver even if they don't have wisdom. So it can sometimes be a difficult part to manage as a leader in a corporation, because the corporation can do good, but it doesn't mean that it's good leadership is actually happening in this corporation.
That's right.
That's sometimes the difficulty. So what do how do you work with those leaders, I mean, to make sure people have this authenticity? Is there a particular system that you use, a particular philosophy, a particular something that really help them to go to the next level as far as leadership is concerned and really step into their authenticity?
Well, the first thing I do is at the moment, this is what I'm doing. I find it's working quite well. It's just the key is to help them understand, or just take them from their headspace to their heart. Because quite often you'll get leaders who, oh well, I've done that. I've shown those people I'm tough, or I've done this or whatever. But take them to the heart. And the simple question that I find works the best is to simply say, so if I go and ask any of your people who report to you, how do you want them to be describing you to me individually? And they think about that. It usually takes a few minutes.
It's not an easy one.
Yes, okay. Now, and some will blast out and say, oh, well, I want to be known as somebody who gets the work done, somebody who's very effective, very smart, and delivers on time, all those things. Some say that, and I say, so interesting. So when you think back of all the leaders, people you've worked for, what's the first thing comes into your mind? Then I'll think about that. Then I'll think, oh, yeah, I know what you mean now. It's how you make them feel. Because that's what they've just realised it's the feeling that they remember people by. It's not the fact that they're very effective and efficient. That tends to blow over pretty quick. It's whether they felt encouraged, whether they felt discouraged, whether they felt valued, whether they felt not valued, all those sorts of things. That's what pops up. The face of that leader pops up with that feeling. Right? But most get it straight away, because a lot more is spoken about that, but then they'll write down how they truly want to be described. Right, so we get to that exercise. And then the next challenge is, and look, most get there, right? So what's the problem? What's the problem with not being described that way, not actually having that? And the problem is you've actually got to do certain things in order to be described that way. I mean, as a coach, I like to help people, but I don't have a magic wand. I don't go ping and there it is, magic. Everyone will describe you that way. No, you've got to do the certain things day in, day out in order for them to be describing you that way. So you come up with several behaviours. Then that's what happens then.
So consistency is one thing, basically. That's what you're saying. Is that as a leader, you have to be consistent, because otherwise, it becomes very difficult to lead.
That's right. And it's at the end of the day, it's the self-discipline, the self-leadership that will allow you to keep working that, working your checklist. And so when you're looking at the consistency, it's interesting, because one of the things I was reading some research lately, don't ask me where it was now, but it's one of the universities, and it might have been Mackenzie's, I can't remember, but they were saying that basically the employees, one of the things they hate is the inconsistency of their boss. They'd actually rather work for a bad boss that's consistent than the inconsistency of a boss. In other words, if it's a bad boss, we don't like it, but we can work around it because we know what they're going to be like every day. When the ones that pat you on the back one day and then hit you over there with the stick the next day, that type of thing, they hate that. That's their worst hate with leaders, managers. And so when you mention consistency, see, when you lead from your values from within, you have consistency. Your values they're your values. They don't change. Lead from up here, bit of data changes. Oh, I read a new article. You got to lead this way. Oh, I'll do that. Whatever happens, right? It might be against. If it's towards if congruent with their value, then great, do it. But if it's most, they don't even think about that. They go, oh, I'll do that. Or I read somewhere that someone over there did this or that. Oh, I'll do that. I'll give that a crack. But see, that's just they're chopping and changing regularly, and that's what employees don't like. Because they want consistency.
Yeah. And but the thing is, as we talk about what's happening right now with things changing all the time, I mean, it's very difficult to do a forecast for like even 6 months because things are changing so much. So it's bringing a lot of inconsistency as well. So how do we go around all of this? Because change is really it's really the constant here. So someone might tell you it's difficult to be consistent if things are changing all the time. So is there something that you can recommend for those kind of
well, consistency, if you're true to your values, that doesn't change. The environment changes around you, but where you react from is the same as you reacted yesterday to one particular circumstance. Oh, that's changed, but I react the same way. I compile the same thoughts, just the context has now changed. So to me, that is the consistency. It's the one thing you can do that's consistent is be true to yourself, because that is consistent. That's the thing. It's reacting to the environment and trying to do what you believe is more expected you to do there, or someone expects you to do this. I've got to be doing this. Whatever it is, that's the inconsistency. And the more that changes, the more you'll change as the way your perspective is. The key is you stick to yourself. Doesn't matter what's going around you. You're the lighthouse in the storm. Whatever the storm is, you're the lighthouse. People gravitate to your light because that's the consistency. And you're right, particularly the last couple of years. With and I was working in you've done a lot of work in oil and gas. I was working within that sort of industry when COVID hit. So oil and gas had a big challenge. Because not only had the problem with COVID, they had challenge with the prices plummeting. So therefore, there's several wars on different battles on different front of the war, right? So so what you're wanting is your leader to have some. You want that some sort of hope. So when you're the lighthouse in a storm, a lighthouse gives you hope because you're still staying true to your values. Sure, you got to duck and weave. And what I saw with the good leaders is they just put up their hands and says, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after. But one thing I can promise you I'll do is this. So they promise them what they can control, not what they can't control. Be honest and be open to what you can't control. Because if you say you can control it, most employers will go, no, you can't. So therefore, whatever you say is all waffle, right? So, but if you say what you can control, I will keep working as much as I can for you people. I will do the best I can do, whatever it is, right? You want to say, but it's coming here because you can control that. You can control how much you can do for the staff. You can control how much you'll stick with it, or whatever it is. But you can promise that. You just can't promise what the market's going to do and all those other sundry things.
I don't think somebody can actually say anything about the market right now because
I think it's always look, if everyone had an expertise in the markets, Murray, they'd be an absolute multi-billion billionaire because everyone would be flocking to them. That would be it. No problem.
No problem, but you can't. And that's the thing, because we always have all those, people who are telling us that they are expert. And like you said, you need to know your limitation. When you talk about expertise, you have to make sure whatever you promise and whatever you talk about, you can control. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's the challenge for a lot of experts. So we're going to have another break, and we'll be back to continue this exciting conversation. And if you're just joining us, my guest today is Ross Swan. Ross Swan is the CEO of and co-founder of Soul Inspire Leadership. And he has worked with he's a coach as well, a leadership coach, and he has worked in, various industry. And we're having a great conversation on authentic leadership. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in a few minutes.
Sounds good.
Tous les souhaits. Qui c'est madame en câlin, même si nous savons ça, ça fait la peine. Elle est souffert, moi elle souffert, supporter.
So we are back. We are back with Ross, and as you could see from this commercial, Soyez Réel show is going to come back. That's for my French, French audience. So we will be back in few weeks. So stay tuned if you know anybody who is, interested to participate in and tuning in the conversation in French. Let them know that we are back with Soyez Réel. So here today we have Ross. Ross is with us, and we're talking about authentic leadership. And Ross, I have a question for you because we've been talking about what authentic leadership is all about. What are the obstacles, the challenges? And one thing that I really want to know is that what are the different key solution that you think must be implemented to make sure that we have, we experience authentic leadership at whole level, basically.
So the question is, so what should leaders be doing to make sure it filters down through the organization? Yeah. And that's always the challenge. If you've, keep going.
No, that's really what I'm saying, and then how it can spread, because obviously we think that leadership is start from the top. So how do we cascade it down to make sure that everybody is authentic, and that we create some great impact at any level.
Yeah, and that's an easier question, or easier said than done, that one, because if you're a CEO, for example, and you've got 100,000 staff, how do you filter that across the world? Because you can't, it's very hard to sort of get that message to everyone at the same point, right? But you can do, but it doesn't mean to say, oh, that's impossible. You've just got to lead the people who report to you. You've got to lead them and walk that talk. So, and part of that accountability for them would be holding them accountable to be doing the same thing. So it gradually goes down. That they're, again, easier said than done. But you at least got to have that mindset that the accountability of having people try to lead themselves. So you're working on being the leaders they want to be. So each one has that conversation. Like I said to you, it's a simple thing. If it's just write down the leader that you want to be. Now, you might have to help some of them, right, to just to open up their mind. But if they've done some self-leadership at school or university, where they've learned a bit more about having a healthy self-esteem and sticking true to their values, then they're more likely to be okay with that. Others will struggle a bit because they just don't have that within them at the top. But you can encourage it. It's all within them. You just need to encourage it to the surface. But rolling that down, that's one thing. I've seen some companies who do things like they'll have, as soon as someone reports, they have someone reporting to them. They get a frame little, like it's like a 10 commandment. They'll get a frame. These are our leadership behaviours. And they'll itemize those behaviours. They won't give opinions like, oh, they want to be a supportive leader, because that's open to interpretation. So they'll do specific behaviours. That's where it's important. You know, they'll say exactly what they're going to do as a behaviour, and they won't do 1,000. They'll just do the key 5 or 6 that the company culture wants to do. Right, the values of the CEO, for example, wants to instigate throughout the organisation. So they just get a framed little certificate to say that's it. That's to sit on their desk. If they're working from home, well, they'll get one pop up on their laptop, right? Whatever it is, but it reminds them. It reminds them. And so it's funny. Some ignore it. Don't get me wrong, but some who look at it and they look at it and they look and they go, that something might make them feel a bit guilty. What I've just done with Ross today, I feel a bit guilty about that, because that's probably not quite what we should be doing. You know, so it's at least making them think. But when you're managing someone or leading them, and you're going through their reviews, that's what you whip out. You pull out and let's go through the behaviours. And so, and you seek feedback based on those behaviours. You do 360s based on those behaviours, and you're starting to see what the trends are to help you identify where the trouble spots are, or the trouble managers are, to see if you can deal with that. Right, you need to approach it and deal with it. So that's what HR would be doing. They'd be monitoring all that. Going back to the person responsible for that part of the business and having them work on something there.
And it's important that we remind HR that they're part of this process, because sometime in organization, you have people in HR, they think that they're just there to execute and hire people, and that's not their problem after that. So it's important to understand that they are carrying the culture and the value of the organization or the community or whatever it is, and they have to be cognizant of it. So so great, great insight, great conversation. And I always have a question that I love asking people, because most of the people that I invite, they've done so much. They created impact globally. And what I really want to know is, because you've worked in finance, now you really, we can see that you're passionate about coaching. So what's next? What is the legacy that you want to leave?
The legacy I want to leave, well, getting back to my little barrow I push, is the self-leadership. If children were taught, and not taught as a subject, but just taught that self-leadership, in other words, what's it like their own, what's the word I'm trying to say? It's just encouraging them to believe in themselves. It's improving their esteem. Now, some of them have trouble at home where their home life is not so good. So they're horribly insecure, but the key is, if they're at least getting that at school, they're getting some security to believe in themselves, to be true to what they really believe is, what their little soul inside, or their soul inside is really believing, and trying to teach them to do that. And that's the self-leadership. And I think that should be inculcated in all aspects of schooling all the way through. Now, if you get to university, which is, to me, has got to be there as well, but you got to start when they're young. But we can't wait till the young ones to come through. If we let's start, but let's keep reminding people. We don't want to teach them when they're 9 or 10. That's okay. Then when they get to university, it's all knowledge, and you've done well. You got a distinction, triple honours. And you've only got a credit, Ross. That's about all I ever got. But anyway, that's That's the sad bit, right? But what you're doing is you don't teach it as a separate subject how to lead yourself, because students will go to sleep. That'll be the subject they go and just chill out the back. But it needs to be, when you're teaching engineering, for example, when you're bringing up certain points that underpin it by the ability to influence that knowledge and turn it into wisdom. The underpinning it, but that self-leadership of that person as an individual to be able to show the world their engineering expertise and add value to the engineering world by their contribution. That type of thing. It's not just the subject matter in a way. It's that, how do we now turn that knowledge into wisdom? And that's the self-leadership. It's how do I influence people to in the engineering space or whatever space you're working on. And to me, that should underpin all the knowledge subjects. That to me, that's my passion, is to try to get that to happen. I work on it, but we'll keep working on it. And the more you can self-lead, help people self-lead, to me, we're on a track to something of where we want to be going to. To me, that's the key. That's the starting point.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because we look more at the external, what's going on outside us, and yet it starts with us. Everything starts with us. So that's the self leadership that you're talking about. And when we are okay with who we are, and we have this self leadership, nothing can stop us. And it's like a ripple effect. We actually contaminate people around us, and it just go on and go on. So it is important that we get this self-reflection and understand who we are, and and really be able to self-manage ourselves, and know ourselves very well. So it has been really, a great conversation. Unfortunately, time, is running out, but I guess, the audience has been able to grab, a bit of your leadership and your wisdom, because you talk about wisdom, and you're passionate about wisdom. And I encourage them to connect with you. And hence my question: how do people connect with you?
How they connect with me? Well, they can connect with me on LinkedIn, or they connect on my site. I have a leadership podcast. I do, but you get www.soul-inspired-leadership.com. They can connect with me there. But the easiest one is just, given we're operating this live, and it goes to LinkedIn, and we've posted it out. So they can connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's probably good, and they'll have my LinkedIn address there. So connect with me, reach out with a question. That's fine. I'm happy to have a chat with people and just see whether I can be of service or not, or et cetera, et cetera.
Anything coming up that you want to share with us? Any workshop, any mastermind, or anything that that we should be aware of, and tell people?
Well, you asked me about we had a show about a week or so ago. I could have talked about a workshop I did on strategy implementation, but that one's gone. And about 2 weeks ago, I did a presentation on a positivity weekend in the US on the metaverse. So that was interesting. I was hologrammed in. So, but that just happened. So, but what I can talk about now, I do have self-leadership training courses that they are downloadable. And so by going to the www.soul-inspired, soul-inspired-leadership.com, they go to services, and they can pick on that and pick on training, and they'll see a couple of courses, self-leadership. One's basically what we've been talking about today a little bit, and another one's is know yourself. Then you can is understanding yourself more. So it's helping people better understand themselves, and what sort of creates some of the behavioural challenges they have, etc. So those couple of downloadables are there. People can download, watch it at any time. And they're both $75 US for the download. So, and there'll be a bit more of a suite coming there in the near future. Different
Mhm.
subject matter.
Fantastic. So if you want to connect with Ross, so LinkedIn is the platform and also the website. So we're gonna put the website when we finish, so that you can have it, and then you can have access to his leadership courses that you can do at home. So you don't need to no worries, like we say here. You just go download and pay for the download, and then you educate yourself to go to the next level of your leadership, but also to the next level of your greatness. And before we leave the platform, any message that you want to leave us with, Ross?
Well, I think the last message is getting back to that exercise when I was talking about when I was working with executives to write down how you want to be described as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
That can help in all aspects of your life. How do you want to be described as a partner?
Mm-hmm.
And then what have I got to do every day in order for that my partner to be describing me that way? Now, if you're not sure, ask the partner. But
Yeah.
if you say I want to, if you say I want to be a supportive partner, yeah, but what you think is supportive and what the partner thinks is supportive could be totally different. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm getting at. The key is to connect and communicate. What's supportive to you, dear? Like whatever it is, then you're getting some behaviours. Then it's up to then if you really want to, then you just live those behaviours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you can roll that at any aspect of your life. What do you want to be described as a parent? If
Mm-hmm.
someone else is describing you from their perception as you as a parent, etc., etc. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, it can happen any part of the life. Just write it down from the heart. What that's true to your values. Then work out what have I got to do in order for me to be described that way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm. And it's a full process, and that's sometimes what we don't realize. It's not just about keeping it in your head and wishing
Mm.
something. It's about really, like you said, thinking really about what we want to do, how we want to be,
Yeah,
remember how we want to, come across, and write down what are the gaps, where we are, what are the gaps that we have, and how we can fill those gaps. It can be through training, like you provide. It can be through coaching. It can be through anything else, and that's where it's powerful, because there's always a way to go to the next level. It's
yeah,
just a matter of being ready and understanding that, like you said, it starts with us, and we need
it
to
does.
understand where we are, what are our shortcomings, our gaps, and compare to where we want to be. And
Mm.
that's a powerful process that people can actually use
Yeah,
to be the best version of themselves, because that's really where we want them to be. And that's why I do show like that, is really make sure that people understand that they can become the best version of themselves. There are
they certainly can,
tools.
Murray. They can.
Yeah, there are tools, there are processes, there are experts. We can help them, coaches, anybody, and there's always a way to go to this next level. So thank you so much, Ross, for being with us today, and for bringing your wisdom into the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And I encourage you again to connect with us, and to really appreciate the work that is doing, and just be open if you need assistance from him. And you will not be deceived, I think. So don't be shy. Understand that you are responsible for your development. You are responsible for your greatness. It starts with you. But if you have gaps, there are always people like Ross who can come and help you to go to where you want to be. So thank you very much. I will
Right,
be
Murray.
back for another episode of the Greatness Engineering show on Friday. And Friday we are going to Dubai, and we're going to talk to three ladies who have developed a platform to empower women. So it's going to be an interesting conversation as well, going through this platform and understanding really, what the impact that they want to create, not only in the Middle East but also in the world. So thank you again, and I will be back on Friday. So have a great day. Enjoy your evening, Ross. And
Yeah,
for
thanks
those
for
who are
listening.
for those who are in a different continent, I think in North America, my audience in North America is just waking up. So
Just
have
waking
a
up.
great
Yeah.
day. And the Europe and Africa, enjoy your afternoon. So thank you. It has been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks,
So
mate. A lot
see
of fun.
you.
Yep. See you later. Bye bye.